Hello, welcome to the More Cheese, Less Whiskers podcast. My name is Dean Jackson, and today we're talking with Yassin Shaar, and Yassin is a real estate mogul, let's call him this. He's a real estate impresario who's taking over the rent-to-own world and with a very focused market. And so we spend a lot of our time here talking about how to position Yassin as a market maker. He's got really fundamentally, and this is, we're talking about a concept that the mechanics of it are that we are looking at being a market maker. The specifics of it are that he's looking for people who have homes that they would like to sell. We have people who want to buy homes rent to own. They can't afford a down payment or for whatever reason right now. And we have investors who would like to buy homes with a pre-sale that people would like to ultimately own. So we're going to look at that triangulation as our market making opportunity. So listen in and you'll see how we unfold that. But just imagine that can apply to so many things. Anytime there's an opportunity for you to be a market maker that way. Okay, listen in.
Who is this?
Hello. Yassin here. How's it going, Dean?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm really excited to be talking to you. I'm
Well,
super pumped.
Me too. So we got a whole hour to
Awesome.
hatch some evil schemes
Okay.
here. I know a little bit. I know a little bit of the backstory since we've had some conversations on Go Agent. But for this context, why don't you go ahead and set the whole
Awesome.
context for us, and then we can jump
Will
off
do.
from there.
And I'll try to keep it short. When I get excited, I start talking fast and I talk a lot. So I'll try to keep it short.
Okay.
So I'm in the real estate market, and my niche is rent to own lease purchase. Right. Very hot market. And what I do is basically I work with real estate investors, wholesalers, and agents and brokers, and I handle their seller and buyer marketing. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Okay. And where do you do that? What market?
So today we're in about 9 different markets. Cincinnati, Ohio, Las Vegas, Seattle, St. Louis, Columbia. So we're in about 9 markets.
You're all over the place. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So what's working so far? How would you describe how it works, like in your, yeah.
So that's a great question. So when I started, my story with real estate is interesting. I've been doing this for 5 years, but I got involved in different projects outside of real estate over the years, and then early this year I decided to just let go of everything and double down on real estate. So what how I started and how I typically do things is we started I started working with investors and wholesalers. Basically, what I do is I do seller marketing I go after for sale by owner and for rent by owner. I reach out to them and say, see if they'd be in your house for a couple of years and then selling. Basically, I pre-screen the leads over email and text, and once we pre-screen them, I send them over to the client to close them. And we usually do what, in our world, it's called assignment. Basically, we put the property under contract. We first act as the tenant buyers, because when I started this, I started working with investors and wholesalers, not agents. So these folks don't have a license. So what we do as investors or wholesalers, we put it under contract and we act as the tenant buyers. We pay an earnest fee, $100, whatever. And we have the right to reassign that contract to someone else. So within 30 days, if there's enough cash flow in the deal, we got it under contract for $1,200 and we can rent it out for $1,500, we stay in the middle. And we find we sublet it. Now, if there's not enough in the middle, we just reassign it to a tenant buyer, someone who doesn't have a good credit, but they don't want to keep renting. They want to move into a house that they can own. They're tired of renting, so we just give them the contract and we get out of the deal.
Okay.
And we make some money.
And so how does the actual rent-to-own portion of it work? Walk me through one of the scenarios here.
So that's a good question. So say we find a seller who's trying to sell their house, top dollar because they don't have equity, right? They can't get a realtor because they can't afford a 6%. So they want to sell, on their own, but they don't have equity, so they can't negotiate on the price. So their house sits on the market for a while, say 30 days or so, and now they're just, maybe they want to relocate or, something is happening in their life. They just need to move that house. So we come in and say, hey, you want 100,000? We're going to give you 100,000. And we're not even going to negotiate on the price. We'll give you exactly what you want. However, you need to give us a couple of years to buy the house. Meanwhile, we'll be renting from you, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how we do it. So we get it for 100,000, say, and say the rent is $1,000, and then it depends if we can make money on it. Say if we can act as the tenant buyers and we can sublet it for say $1,200 a month, right? So we then do that, and that's what's called sandwich lease. We sandwich it, and now if there's not enough money in the middle, we just say, we got it for 100,000. We, sell it for 105, and we make the difference. So we say, hey, Mr. Tenant Buyer, I'm working, I have this contract. If you want it, I'll give it to you for 105. And then, we take 5,000, and then we, get out of the deal and connect the buyer and the seller. There's, there are more terms involved, but that's the 5,000 fit view.
I got you. Now, so when does when do you get paid? And how do you get your?
So I charge a monthly fee. I'm sorry. How do I get paid as the service provider, or how do I get paid as the investor?
Either way. So if you've come to somebody and you say, listen, we're going to buy your house, but we're going to do that in a couple of years. So right now we're going to rent it. So you have, I'm looking at the different transactions that you have to kind of negotiate. So you have to negotiate with a seller to say, instead of selling your house right now, I'm not going to give you 100,000 now. I'm going to sign an agreement to pay you $1,000 a month for the next 2 years for that.
Exactly.
And then you sell it to me. Do we negotiate the selling price now and close?
Yeah, we set the price right now.
We set the price at 100,000 now, and we're going to close in 2 years. And in that time, I'm going to pay you $1,000 a month until then.
Absolutely.
So you get that agreement secured first. Is that what's happening?
And I have 30 days to close.
Okay,
exactly. And I have 30 days to close.
Execute on that. So then in that 30 days, what you're looking for now is a rent-to-own buyer who wants to buy a house, and you say, I'll sell this one to you for $105,000, and you rent it for $1,200 a month.
Yeah, if it makes sense, absolutely. Yeah.
Or $1,000.
So if we want to stay in the deal,
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when do you get your 5,000?
Right. So we'll say, hey, it's 105, and you need to put $5,000 down payment, which will be applied back towards the purchase price.
I got you.
That's how I make my 5,000.
Okay,
now,
great.
if we want to exit the contract, to say, it's just at the top of the market, 1,000 is, on the higher end, rental in the area.
Yeah.
And so there's not enough money for me to stay in the deal. So I'll say, hey, Mr. Tenant Buyer, let me give you that contract, you deal, and I'll give it out to you. You give me 5,000 down payment, right? You put it towards the purchase price. I'll take that, and then I'll connect you with the seller, and I'm out. Deal with the seller.
Yeah.
Directly.
Okay.
And that's what typically usually happens. Only 10% of the deals we stay in the middle. 90% we just reassign them.
Right. So you just get paid the 5,000 for the connection for connecting.
Sometimes
the
more.
two.
It depends on the market. In a Midwest market like Oklahoma City, it's a $5,000 average deal size. In Seattle, right? We're talking $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, depends on the property.
Sure. Okay. And then, so what's your what's working now, and what's not working? Where do you see the opportunity?
I love this question. So we've always been limited by how many properties we can get under contract. Our revenue, or the revenue of the client that I'm working with, or sometimes I'm even a partner. It's been, okay, how many contracts can I get this month that I can reassign? And, not everyone wants to do a rent to own. Some people say, I just want to sell outright.
Right.
So you're limited by the number of contracts you can get. And in any given market, maybe 2-3% of the available listings on the market are for lease purchase. The demand is huge, right? There's a lot of people who may not have the best credit score. They can get a loan, but they're tired of renting. So the demand is there. We usually have 5 to 10 buyers for every rent-to-own property we get. But we can't do anything with those buyers because there's just not enough inventory.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is, and this is changing the game now, and recently, well, not recently, since 2012, a hedge fund was found. And these folks saw the opportunity. And this hedge fund, what they're doing is they're buying properties for cash off of the MLS, and they're selling them back on lease with the option to purchase. So these guys solved the supply issue, and they're killing it. Last year they did 3,000 transactions. This year they're on target to do 4,500.
Yeah, there was
right?
Yeah, because you look at that, if they're paying cash for the properties and they're getting, there was a company, Blackstone, that was doing the same thing here in Florida.
They're backed by Blackstone. They are backed. This hedge fund is backed by Blackstone.
Okay, so same thing. And what a brilliant move that was. You look at,
they're dominating the market, monopolizing it.
Because they're taking away the irrationality. Because they've got the cash and they're getting a pretty good cap rate on the cash, just because of the rental rates. They committed a few years ago. They bought over $1 billion worth of real estate.
Exactly, $2 billion. They're
in
at $2
Central
billion.
Florida.
Oh, wow. Yeah, exactly. So what's happening is these folks rely on realtors to bring in the tenant buyer.
Okay.
Like an affiliate program where they say, hey, Mr. Realtor, you want to do more deals? You want to tap into a gold mine? Here's what you need to do. Bring someone who has, these qualifications, your credit score 550 or more than $50,000 a year in household income, blah, blah, blah. Get them to, put in an application. Once we approve them, we're going to say, hey, Mr. Realtor, this client is approved for, say, a house that rents for $1,500 and sells for, say, $200,000. Go find them a house. Once you find them a house and we approve it, we're going to pay you upfront. Now, a realtor, realtors always, used to shy away from rent to own because they don't make their commission upfront, right? They only make a leasing commission, and then they need to wait 1, 2, 3 years until the tenant buyer exercises their option to get their full commission. So for a realtor, they weren't really interested in doing lease purchase, but now the opportunity has opened up. So
because now the realtors
can
get excited about, they get paid the commission from the seller who's somebody's buying the house. That makes total sense.
This is where I'm pivoting. Now. I'm pivoting to work with brokers and agents so I can get into business with that hedge fund. So I'm coming to the broker and agent. I'm saying, hey, Mr. Agent, here's what we're going to do now. You teach this a lot, Dean, and you're spot on. The ultimate leverage in a real estate business is a listing. Because a listing, you can, there's like the listing multiplier. You can get a buyer for that listing. You can get buyers for other listings, and, all that good stuff. So what I'm coming and doing right now is I'm saying, broker, Mr. Broker, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help you get listings, and that we can market and bring in a ton of tenant buyers We'll put one of these tenant buyers into that house. We'll do a nice commission, assignment fee on it. But what the real goal is to bring in as many tenant buyers as we can and put them through that hedge fund and close on them.
Yes.
That has now become my focus. Now, my challenge is, lead generation companies are kind of dime a dozen. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not the only one who can come to those folks and say, hey, let me get you more tenant buyer leads or seller leads, right? Now, I'm like maybe a first mover, but I can see that like catching fire immediately as people start seeing, our success and other folks in that. Everyone is going to jump on it. So what I'm trying to now build a platform. So I've created rentertoowner.com, and I'm building a platform where I can list all these houses on my website. And what I want to become is a destination, develop a competitive advantage that I'm not just another agency. I'm not just another marketing company. I actually have a platform where sellers come to us, list their house for rent to own, and buyers come to us to get into a rent to own house. So when we work together, Mr. Broker, you're leveraging a platform, just like if you're working with Zillow. So look at me as the Zillow for rent to own. So now I've put myself into a whole different category. At least that's my thinking, and that's what I would like to discuss with you, is how can I create a competitive advantage that's defensible? It's nice and everything that I can run some campaigns, get them money, but maybe at some point they'll say, well, Yassin, why do I need you? Maybe I can do this, what you're doing. Facebook ads, that's fine. I'll buy a course or whatever.
Right.
You're too expensive.
Right. Well, part of the thing that I think you have a neat opportunity is not so much to build an overt platform, and by that I mean something that both sides know that this is a platform, but to create almost like a blind platform in that you're triangulating, right? That you're finding people who want to rent to own, independently of finding people who want to sell their house, and your wisdom of who those people are, your collected database is your competitive advantage, right? That's your tool. Like if you're just, aside from finding rent to own sellers, they don't, that's a non-issue when you're going to buy the house, right? Through the hedge fund, right? That you've got to
I don't need that seller. Yeah, I can exactly.
Right, you don't.
I can run campaigns to get
you
buyer
don't need
leads.
to convince the seller to rent to own their house.
So I've been making my money. Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because they want to get their money now. Like you've got the opportunity to create a dream come true for both sides, right? Because the dream come true for the seller is that they can call you and that you'll buy their house, right? So that's a really interesting place to come from. So you don't have to find sellers who are also interested in renting to own, because it doesn't matter. You just have to find sellers who are interested in selling their house. Now, the good news about finding sellers like that is that there's other marketplaces for them, because realtors would be completely excited to have, you could refer the seller to a realtor to list the house traditionally, right? You could also, if you have what the catalyst is here, the market maker opportunity is when you have a buyer and you have the renter all lined up for the buyer, right? So you've got, I think it's really like creating a little marketplace that you're completely in control of, right? You're a market maker. You're not creating a marketplace. Being a market maker is the competitive advantage.
Exactly. So shall we get it like into a little bit tactical level?
Sure.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say, hey, I found a broker who wants to work with me, say in Portland, Oregon. Actually, I was just got off the phone with a prospective broker over there, and we were talking about the opportunity. So let's that hedge fund is in that market. They're buying properties, and I just found a broker. So let's get to work. What would be your first step, Dean, to start becoming a market maker in that market?
Okay, so you gotta separate it on both sides, right? We've got to first of all find buyers who want to rent to own. So that's going to be a pretty easy proposition because those words rent to own are going to be a welcome words for somebody who they want to own. They've got a little bit of money, but they don't have the credit to get a traditional mortgage yet, right? That's primarily who this is most interested in.
Yes, sir.
Now, what do you do with the people who they have good credit and they want to own, but they don't have down payment money? Can you help people like that?
So that's a very great question. So this hedge fund doesn't do the traditional rent to own. So that's the thing. How they do it is they say, hey, I'll buy the house for cash. Say I'll buy it for $100,000. And here's what we're going to do. You're going to rent it. You're not going to put a down payment, actually, Dean. So if you don't have a down payment, that's fine. We don't want to burden you with a down payment. You're just going to put 2 months worth of, 2 months worth of deposit, which is refundable if you don't end up If you don't end up buying the house. I'm going to give you up to 5 years to exercise your option. Meanwhile, you're just going to be renting. You're going to pay me $1,000. And if you wish to buy in the first year, you're going to pay me $120,000, Dean. If you want to, so now every year there's going to be an increase in the purchase price and in the rent amount. So I would suggest, Dean, that you get started working on your credit score and stuff. You can buy the house from us as soon as possible, so you don't have to stay renting. So they don't take down payment. That's and they don't apply any rent towards the purchase price. So that's kind of like give and take. You don't have to put a down payment, but you're not going to get any rent credit. You're just it's a regular lease, but we're going to give you the option to buy it.
Yeah.
If you wish.
If so, perfect.
There are folks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there are folks who don't meet the hedge fund qualification, but they do have a down payment, right? That segment, they'll need to wait until we get a property under contract that's for rent to own, and we can put them into that house. Now, and that's going to be like, you can't serve, it's just inventory, right? There is a limitation. That's the constraint. Now, the rest of the folks who qualify for the hedge fund, we can just put them through. And funny enough, about 5% of people we come across, they do qualify for a loan, but they just don't know it, or they need to do like some simple, stuff on their credit, and they would qualify. So, and we got someone like that in Colombia. She came in thinking that she needs to go through this rent-to-own program, whatnot. We got her to talk to the mortgage broker, and actually the mortgage broker was able to qualify her for a loan. So that was awesome. Perfect. So we just put her into a house. So there are 3 segments. High down payment doesn't qualify. High down payment doesn't qualify for the hedge fund. This is we put him in a rent-to-own house. No down payment but qualifies for the hedge fund, right? We put them into the hedge fund, and there are folks who just qualify for loan.
And what would be the qualifications for the hedge fund? What would
that's a good question. So 550 credit score or more, at least 550, $50,000 in household income. Okay. You can afford $1,250 in rent or more. Yeah. So the hedge fund buys properties from $100,000 up to $750. Right. Gotcha. So that's the range. So properties start, the rent at $1,250, and you can't be in a pending bankruptcy. It's okay if you got discharged, but you can't be in a pending bankruptcy. You had no evictions in the past 3 years, and you have a stable income. I mean, you've been in your job for quite a while and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So there's lots of those people, I'm sure. Those words, rent to own, that certainly is a good word to find them. So then on the other side, all you're really looking to do is no different than a real estate agent would be looking for listings, right? You're just looking for people who are thinking about selling their house, right? Or about to put it on the market. And that's where, I would look at it that my approach would be to do the getting listings program that we have in GoGo Agent.
Right.
To just, because pick an area of homes that are, let's take Portland, for example, where you are, is to find the specific neighborhoods and areas that have the exact homes that would be the best, right in the middle candidates for the rent to own program, right? What would be the things? When Blackstone was buying all the properties here in Florida, they were buying
specific communities. I know the exact communities they're buying in.
They were buying single family homes, three or four bedroom, with the garage, and detached homes, not older than 1978.
Yeah, 10 years. No, even they're now they're more strict. Yeah, they're it can be more than 10 years usually in some markets.
So you pick the neighborhoods where those houses are and just start the getting listings program there, looking for those people, right? Because then there's a marketplace for those leads regardless, right? It either fits or because all they need to know is that you have a buyer, when you're looking at it, I would start building everybody who responds to the postcards as a secret inventory that you have of people who are thinking about or more likely to sell their house in the next 12 months, right? And so we overlay that data with a Google map, where you can import, and then it shows with pins where those homes are. And then when you find the buyers who are specifically, you find the rent to own buyers who want to rent to own. It's almost like if you've got the hedge fund situation, you don't even necessarily need the listing. You can still get them in another house, right? You can take
but that's
that.
What I'm doing right now.
Yeah,
I'm running Facebook ads. So I picked 5 listings that are available on the market for sale.
Yeah.
And it's hey, you can get one of these houses. You can lease one of these houses with the option to purchase. Here are the estimated selling price or whatnot. So I'm leveraging what's already on the market. And this has performing. It's it needs some work, but I'm getting leads anywhere from $10 to $15. I'm getting that down, but that's what I'm getting the tenant buyer leads for right now.
Yeah. And, could it be, some inventory that you could have would be maybe the HUD homes as well as an opportunity for it, right? Because anybody can bring a buyer for those. But that might be part of the good news is when you've got a nice listing that's already, somebody's living in it, it's more likely that it's going to be kind of move-in ready. Is the hedge fund doing any repairs or any updates or anything?
No, they don't want to do any. Well, it's simple.
Right.
I mean, $10,000 or less. I mean, they don't get into
we're not going to recarpet
no rehabbing. It's like cosmetics. Yeah, a little bit of paint, stuff like that, carpeting. Yeah, but other than that, they disqualify.
Yeah, perfect. So, I mean, this is really, it's kind of like that triangulation with a bit of a moving sidewalk, in that you've got a potential buyer. Now, will they work with anybody, or have you got a relationship with them, or
with who?
With the hedge fund? Yeah.
I mean, they have an affiliate program, so I'm not in direct contact with the hedge fund, so it's through the broker or the agent that I work with. So they have like an affiliate program. You can apply to it as a broker, and then, you go from there. Just like start bringing some buyers and properties, and we'll approve them and we'll pay you. So they're actually representing the fund in the transaction.
Gotcha,
the broker. They're not representing the tenant buyer, because the tenant buyer is not actually the customer. They're bringing them along the journey.
Yeah.
So great. So can we? So you're saying, right? So there are different things, right? Like, we're very flexible in like our go-to-market strategy. We can leverage existing listings, right, and market them. Hey, like, even though this is for sale, you can actually get it for a lease with the option to purchase. Here's how. And then we can go after our own listings that, we can go after our own listings, and we can, what you say, like oil wells, right? We can create our own oil wells and market in areas that meet the hedge fund criteria, get that listing and start advertising it as a lease with the option to purchase, because you can, maybe that's even a benefit to the seller. You can say, hey, Mr. Seller, I actually have a hedge fund who's buying these properties.
Right.
Would you like? I have a cash buyer. So if you list with me, I already have a cash buyer, and you'll get paid for cash. But we actually turn around and advertise it for lease with the option to purchase. Either way, I mean, you know what I mean?
Part of the goal is you don't have to advertise. The great thing about rent to own is that you don't have to advertise a specific house. You can advertise that concept as a lead generator, right? Because that's where that you can represent a rent to own program, or
that's great.
A book on rent to own.
Let's dive deeper here. Can we dive deeper here? So, and that's been one of the things that I've been going through. So, Yassin, why would I work with you? Then why should I go through you when I can go through a realtor who's actually working with a hedge fund? So one of the thoughts that I've been going through is, look, Mr. Tenant Buyer, let's assume, Dean, you're the tenant buyer. Dean, yes, it's great that you can go work with a realtor, but did you know that, most realtors really, they just want to close on the deal and get out of the transaction. And, statistics show that less than 30% of people who get into rent-to-own house actually close on it. I'm sure where you get into a house and now you have to move out into another house because you couldn't close on it, right, Dean? Right. So here's what we do, Dean. When you work with me, not only I connect you with a local realtor, with our preferred local realtor, but I'm going to actually work with you on fixing your credit. So we're going to also connect you with a credit score, our recommended, credit repair guy, who's going to put an action plan together with you on how long will it take you to actually buy this house and what you need to do to buy this house, right? What are the things that you need to, fix on your credit to get into a house? So we'll be with you along the way, the whole thing, right? Finding a house, fixing your credit, and getting you a mortgage. And that's, I'm thinking, what's the value proposition of why should you go with Yassin rather than go straight with a realtor as a program? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's exactly where that's a sort of a longer explanation of what I was describing. That you don't necessarily, it's not about needing a specific house to do that, but to be able to talk about this program that you help, that it's a service that you're helping people all the way through. Now, you also then, when they take somebody through this program, that you're going to match them with an investor. It doesn't, you don't necessarily even have to say about the hedge fund specifically.
Absolutely.
Right? Right.
Yeah. So I don't want to open up like a whole other side to the business.
Yeah.
But once the platform has been established and say 2 years down the road, actually I can replace the hedge fund with my own investors.
Right.
Because
and
the strategy,
I think that you could find investors who want to invest in real estate short term with no hassles of dealing with tenants, like a completely,
you saw the vision. I love it.
Yeah, you manage that whole process there.
Absolutely.
And what kind of ROI could somebody get on a on a $200,000 house? So they buy a house.
I ran the numbers with my client in New Jersey, who's a realtor and investor, and we're working on this model. So this hedge fund is not in New Jersey. So we're doing the traditional get a property under contract and reassign it. And cash on cash, on the first year, you get 4% cash on cash. If the tenant buyer decides to exercise their option the first year, you get 9% return on your investment. Cash on cash. You put 100,000, you get 9,000. If 4% income, rental income, and then additional, 5% addition, on top of that, if the tenant buyer exercises their option to actually buy the house
for 105,000 or whatever, right? Or if you're saying,
As an investor, you'll make 9% cash on cash. You put 100, you'll get 9, and that's like realtor, taxes, vacancy, all that included. So we ran the financial model on a spreadsheet, and that's what I mean. So now, this hedge fund has been doing it for a while. They kind of dialed in. They have some sort of an algorithm. I'm sure we can get those numbers up, but they're very selective about the communities. I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes and how they select the community, but I'm sure there's a sweet spot in there where we can, an investor can put 100 and maybe make 15% in a select community versus another one. So I guess it's going to be a process for us to figure out the algorithm. What are the best investment properties that we can get for lease with the option to purchase? Like, let's call it turnkey lease option. So now we're selling turnkey lease option. I'm saying, Mr. Investor, I found this tenant buyer. We've got them this is their situation. We found them a house, that you can get 10, 20, 90, whatever the number is. And, here's the deal. It's a turnkey deal. And we have a property management that can take that, that's the vision, Dean. And, I'm so glad that, it's the first time I actually put it out there. I'm so glad that, you kind of stole it. And that's what I'm trying to get. But first, I'm like, okay, let me focus now. Like, that's the big vision. Have a turnkey, some sort of a business model. But for now, if I need to dial in the sales and marketing to get those tenant buyers and all that. And then once I have that dialed in, I can then add that piece to the model, the investor turnkey.
Yeah. So part of it is that it's not, there's nothing beneficial about the scale of it because it's just brokering these individual connections, right? So there's no, so when you start thinking about it at scale, it's just a replication of the micro transaction, right? You just need to have a system that finds one person who wants to sell their house and one person who wants to rent to own. And you've got the hedge fund or an investor who wants to fund, on a short-term basis. And that triangulation is where your opportunity is, is to have a system that finds those people independent of each other. and then matches them up. You're matching them
Absolutely.
because they would not be able to find each other. You know,
Exactly.
It's your magic of knowing that they exist. That's
where
what
the
your
competitive advantage is.
That's
right?
your competitive advantage, right?
Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so you know, as you can see, there are so many different sides to this, right? And I'm committed to cracking the code. So I, you know, so it's like, where do you focus right now? Right? If you were in my shoes, so currently I'm like in nine different markets, working more on the assigned. So in 3 markets, we're starting to do this, you know, with the hedge fund. We're starting to get results. We're getting things off the ground. But I'm more established on the seller side, and that's what's really now making me money. So, but you know, if you were in my shoes, Dean, where would you start? Which side of you know, or would you go after all these, you know, sides simultaneously, or would you start?
It's one of those things where you need all 3 to make it work, right? So you've got, I think if the hedge fund is a viable option and you have a relationship and they're crystal clear guidelines, you know, that you don't have to like wonder whether this is going to work out. If you completely understand and they're willing to buy it, you've got that stable, right? You've got that well that you can go to, and you know you're going to put your bucket down and the money's going to come up, right? Because you've met their criteria. So you've got that. So you've got that stabilized. Now,
so I'm under their mercy. You know, maybe they say, hey, we're not buying any more houses in this area. But for now, I agree. You know, for now, you know, we got that piece dialed in. Let's not worry about it. You know, for now, let's play their game until we figure the other pieces out.
So now the 2 things that you need to focus on are finding the people who want to rent to own, and finding the people who want to sell their house, right? So right now, if you look at it, the catalyst of all of it is going to be the catalyst is going to be that you have a buyer that wants to rent to own and meets the requirements of the hedge fund.
Absolutely. I mean, the sellers are kind of available on the market, right? They're on the MLS, they're on Craigslist, they're on Zillow. Yeah.
But then the next layer of it is that you want to be able to start finding your own sellers, because that's going to increase the amount of money that you can make. But in the short term, initially, you need to be able to find the buyers, you know? So I would start that engine right now. And that could be Craigslist, it could be print ads, you know, wherever you can find buyers. You could do stealth things, you know, public notice flyers.
Historically, we've been able to like get most of the tenant buyers off of Craigslist, but man, now they're like super strict. You can't post number, like it's not scalable. I can't control it. Sometimes they get, you know, publish the ad. Other times they ghost it. So it's not, you know, Craigslist. That's where a lot of the people are. That's where we've been able to get, but it's not stable. So I'm now doing Facebook ads. Now I did the competitive analysis, and so there are people out there advertising. Here's a list of rent to own on AdWords, but they're really monetizing the leads with a credit repair affiliate offer. They don't. It's kind of, I don't want to say scam, but it's a way to hook them in, and it's like, so what I've been finding is there are people on AdWords running ads, people like, you know, rent to own in Houston, rent to own in Florida, like putting ads there. Another way I've in my conversations with other folks working with home partners they've been actually targeting rental properties. They're doing direct mail. They're going after rental properties in the approved communities, and they're sending mailers, postcards.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great idea in the apartment complexes, right, where people are renting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly an easy, that's a direct way to find them, because you know that everybody in there is renting. And if they knew that there was a way for them to rent to own, that becomes a really viable lead source, you know? That's the thing I love about, if it's at all possible to do direct mail in any situation, I will always use direct mail because it's so targeted, you know? Yeah, I mean, postcards, I just think postcards are still an underrated opportunity, you know, just high ROI.
I love it. Let's come up with a campaign here together, and I'll test it out and then report back. Happy to spend, $1,000 or $2,000 on it and see what happens. So what would be the profit activator, 2 and 3?
Yeah, that you want to get people to raise their hand, right? So you select a single target market. You can get a list of people who are, if you're saying people who are in apartment complexes that have rent that's similar to what they could get this house for,
right?
You don't want to go to a place where the rents are, lower,
right?
Yeah. You want to go to some of the higher priced rentals, or get a list of people who are renting homes, already single family homes in those neighborhoods, which you can also get.
I can figure out the source if I do like a little bit of Google search, but off the top of your head, do you know any list providers or list brokers I can get?
Yeah. So my guys who we use are Prospects Plus, and they have
consumer data.
Yep, they've got all the data that we need. So you find those people. Then it's a matter of the postcard, that you're going to send, and it would be a matter of going through the exercise of creating a word palette for what would be the power words that are amplifiers for people, right? So if you think, those words rent to own are great words, and
low credit, no down payment, stop wasting money on rent.
Describe the whole the situation, and offer a book that describes a process of how to rent to own. And that would be the first thing that I might test, or to get I may even bring in some example properties that they could buy, like different case studies, examples.
So would you send them to a website, or you send a postcard, hey, claim your report, and here's what you'll find in this report, and here are the benefits with all the power words.
Yeah.
And so would they go to a website, or call this number and we'll mail you a report? What would be the next step for them to take?
Yeah. So to go to a website, just a landing page to leave their name and their address, their contact information. That would be the easy thing, or to call and leave their information on a free recorded message.
Mm-hmm. Text their number. I can have an automation. Text your address, and
it's all you in your GoGo Agent account. You've already got
exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
voice touch. You've already got everything you need. Yeah. You've got the landing page. You've got the voice touch. And with voice touch, you can also have people text their email address to you, and it'll automatically put them into your GoGoAgent account and trigger an autoresponder. Yeah.
Very cool. So would you send them an actual physical report or keep it digital, Dean?
Well, I want to get
I know
their
these
physical
are nuances, but I'd love to know your take on
address. I want to get their physical address too.
Okay.
Now that's another good thing about mailing postcards is that you can also now, even if you just get their name and their email address, you can match the name to the address of the postcard that you mailed. So that when Dean Jackson responds, that you look on the list and Dean Jackson lives at 22 Greystone or whatever the address is. So you don't have to ask for somebody's address because you have their address already,
I'm sorry, how would you... I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Well, if you're mailing... So compared to if I'm doing AdWords or Facebook ads, I don't know where those people live, right? So if somebody getting their name and their email address isn't enough because I didn't have their address in the first place.
Right.
But if I mail a postcard and you go to a landing page and leave your name and your email address, I already have your mailing address because because I sent you the postcard.
Right. If we're targeting like an apartment building, we know that they live in that apartment building, but not necessarily which apartment, but we know that in that building.
Well, it depends. If you're doing a list of owners, or whether you're doing a mail, like a EDDM mailing to apartment complexes or something, that would be different. Whenever you don't know the address, you're going to have to get it, right? So they'll have to leave their address. But either way, because it's something, because it's so compelling, people are going to be willing to do that.
Absolutely.
And you can always do a progressive landing page where you can have the first part be their name and their email address, and then the second part can be their mailing address. So no matter what, you at least get their name and their email address. Yeah.
I mean, you can get a little bit more sophisticated with it. I always go simple, but you can have a unique link to each apartment, and I can have it auto-generated. So if they land on a landing page, it's like a UTM variable. It's like, this is apartment 101. Right. Go to this link, and I can they came to the website. Okay, now I can go after them in a multi-channel marketing campaign. I can send them more postcards, emails. I have all their contact info.
Right.
Love it. And then I take the conversation from there. They opt in. How would you continue the conversation? So the way we have it right now is, so I have a Facebook ad. They go to a landing page with a list of properties, and then there's contact agents on that list. On that landing page. So they put in their information, name and email, and then on the second page, there's set up an appointment. So they actually schedule an appointment. They book a call, free consultation with the agent. That's how the kind of, if you want to call it a funnel. How would you structure the conversation? Would you transition over to a phone?
I would look at how are you going to get them to take the next step, right? So the next step is potentially going to be to come to, I might do a rent-to-own workshop at the library so that you're steering people towards something, right? So they can come and learn about this whole process in one thing, or do it as a webinar. You could test
automated webinar. Yeah,
you can
absolutely
test both. then you would have, do something like the way we do with the buyers to offer a daily tour of rent-to-own homes.
I love it.
Right? Join us for
that would be cool.
Tour, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really because you're just going to show them homes that they could that meet the qualifications, like the types of homes that they could buy, but not until they know what the deal is, like what the process is, and that you know that they qualify. And then you could have a custom rent-to-own report where it shows them what their the types of homes that they would be qualified for. Because in order to get, in order to know this, you need to know their income, and need to know their
absolutely So that's the thing. We can't know. So what I'm doing right now is when they get up to the landing page, and they opt in, there's like a series of questions they need to answer, and there's like, do you have a credit score of 550 or more? So we're kind of qualifying them up front. But the only way to know if they qualify is to apply.
To engage with them a little more, and then qualify them in moving towards their desire to do it, rather than,
let's say,
up front, where you're trying to scrub them. That's what that feels like more than anything. It feels like you're trying.
Actually, what's happening? Yeah, what's happening? People are, lying. I got on the phone with the guy. And it's like, I thought you had income less than 50,000. It's like, well, I didn't feel comfortable telling you that I make, I was like, okay, so that happened early this week. So I was thinking about it, like, should I just take off all this, survey stuff? Okay, so what you would ask them is, once they, send them the postcard, they opted in, they got the report, and now I invited them to a webinar. On the webinar, I'll say, now you need to apply, right? Here's the deal, and, I explain, like, here's the type of product, all that good stuff, and then towards the end of the webinar, on the close, I'll say, here's the link, go ahead and apply. And because I'm doing, this week, I'm doing on the weekend, I've rented a bus, and I'll be taking, some folks around the area, showing them some of the properties, blah, 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 but you got to apply. That's where you would ask them to fill out this sensitive information, income and stuff.
Yes, but I would reframe, I would test better words than apply. I would use more amplifiers than filters, like that apply, like you're getting the information. One of the things we do with buyers in a traditional real estate situation is offer people a free home loan report, where we, rather than offering them, rather than kind of insisting that they get pre-approved, right? Pre-approved and apply and all things like that, make it seem more like you're trying to filter them, right? But if I say to people, if I can give them a home loan report, where if we say, listen, we monitor hundreds of different loan programs to find the best, this is what we would say for a home loan report, is the best interest rates, the lowest down payments, the lowest total cost loans. And we put all of our findings together in a custom home loan report. That sounds like, instead of me sitting on one side of the desk saying to you, give me your information and I'm going to either approve of you or deny you, right? It's saying, I'm going to come over on the same side. Yeah, I'm going to come over on the same side of the desk as you, and we're going to look at all of these options that are out here for us.
I love it.
Right.
I love
it. So you want to make
it seem like... It could be custom house search. So it could be, hey, because, I need to know a little bit more about, what fits your criteria. I'd love to know a little bit more about you, and I'll send you like a custom house search, a list of 20 to 50 properties you can check out. And if you'd like to schedule, a tour, I could definitely take you on a tour to see some of those houses.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom. Man,
well, that's
you're
where
genius.
the things. Thank you. That's where the things are. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and experimenting with the words and all that. So that's just the psychology of it,
Yeah.
But I think you got a great, opportunity there.
Opportunity.
We're working on something, like the down payment assistant. Like I'm working on a first-time buyer program right now, and that is similar, But this rent-to-own is a really nice opportunity for people.
I appreciate you, giving me your advice and taking some time here. I hope folks listening to this podcast would benefit from this. And if you guys I'm always testing, and as you've seen in your community, GoGo Agent, I'll be testing everything that we've talked about, and you can hold me accountable. And I'll be posting results in the GoGo Agent forum. So if folks want to see, the type of results we've been able to get as a result of this call, check out the forum.
Perfect. I love it.
Love it.
That's awesome. Very exciting.
All right, I'll update you on the next call, the GoGo Agent call, and I'll let you know how it goes. I appreciate you. You're such a great guy. You're always giving. I have a couple of people in my life who are like you, mentors. Among them is a great guy, Travis Sago. I have a couple of people like you who are giving. I just appreciate you for being in my life and for setting some time here aside to give me your advice. I appreciate you.
Awesome.
Dean.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Yassin.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
And there we have it. That was a fun episode. I think we've got a lot of opportunity for many people to adopt this idea of being a market maker. Anytime that you are, connecting to people, the mechanics of it. That's why I said at the very beginning, the mechanics are the same, right? Whether it is Airbnb, where they are matching people who have homes or rooms that they want to make available in the times that they're not there, and people who are traveling to other areas and don't want to stay in a hotel. That Airbnb interface is being a market maker. I've mentioned it a lot with our lakefront homes, in real estate, looking for people who are going to sell their lakefront homes and people who are looking to buy lakefront homes. We've had these same conversations with business brokers, people who are looking for people who want to sell their businesses and at the same time looking for people who want to buy businesses and being a market maker to put those people together. There's a lot of opportunity like that. Lots of different ways to put some details onto those mechanics, but the principles are the same, right? Being exactly what that person wants. So I'm excited that we get to have these kinds of conversations. And I'd love to hear about your market maker opportunity. If that's something that you've got, I'd love to have a little series of market maker episodes. And I would encourage you, if that's something that you have, to go to morecheeselesswhiskers.com and first of all, download a copy of the More Cheese, Less Whiskers book. That way I'll know, you're one of us, and we'll give you all the announcements every time a new episode comes out. And I send a wonderful email out 2 times a week with lots of a different tip about being a cheesemaker. Let's call it that. Focusing on this philosophy of more cheese, less whiskers. So I'd love you to be part of that. Then click on the Be a Guest button and let me know in that area that you think you might be a good fit for a market maker series, because I'd love to build out the different types of categories here so we can show lots of different opportunities for being a market maker. That's it for this week. Tune in next time and we'll hatch some more evil schemes. Have a great week.